Okay, so let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into, well, something that might seem totally separate from the usual boardroom talk, Uganda's National Heroes Day.
Yeah, exactly. And you shared this really interesting article, right, from the Boardroom Masterclass.
That's the one.
And it gets into the history of the day, happens every June 9th, but then, and this is the key bit, it pulls out these, well, unexpected lessons for corporate boards, for leadership teams.
Right. So our mission here really is to get a handle on the history, understand why it's important in Uganda, and then, yeah, figure out how principles from a national struggle, I mean, we're talking about a war.
A war, yeah.
How that can actually give us solid strategic ideas for companies today. It feels like a bit of a leap, doesn't it?
It does on the surface.
Yeah.
Commemorating wartime sacrifice. Boardroom strategy.
But the article lays it out. So let's start with the history. What exactly does June 9th commemorate?
Okay. So it honors the people who died during the Ugandan Bush War. That's sometimes called the Luwera War or the Resistance War. It ran from 1981 to 1986.
And the date itself, June 9th. That wasn't just picked out of a hat.
No, not at all. Tied to a very specific, quite powerful event on June 9th, 1981.
Okay.
That's the day a man named Adidian Mukibi Ludomagusi, who was sympathetic to the rebels, was killed by government forces.
Killed because?
Because he wouldn't betray Yoweri Museveni and his group, the National Resistance Army, the NRA.
Wow. So he chose death over giving them up.
He did, a pretty stark choice. And his sacrifice, it really became symbolic for the whole liberation movement. It stood for that, courage and commitment they needed.
And the war itself ended when?
It went on for 5 years, ending in early 1986. The NRA won.
So Ludamaguzi's sacrifice, that moment, becomes part of the founding story, in a way. But the official recognition came much later.
Much later, yeah. Decades, actually. It was Uganda's parliament in 2001 that formally made June 9th National Heroes Day.
Okay.
They passed the National Honors and Awards Act, so they basically wrote this remembrance into law, made it permanent, official.
Right. And this is where the article pivots, isn't it? Taking that history and asking, okay, what can a board learn from this? It argues this isn't just history class fodder. It's like a governance playbook.
Exactly. Let's get into those lessons. The first one is, well, it's drawn straight from Ludamaguzi's actions.
Which is?
Standing by your values under pressure. I mean, he faced the ultimate pressure, right? Life or death. And he didn't compromise his commitment.
It's an extreme example, obviously. Boardroom pressure is usually, market forces or maybe political heat, not that.
True. But the principle holds. The extremity of his situation just highlights how fundamental integrity can be. Boards face huge pressures from competitors, shareholders, regulators.
All the time.
All the time. So holding firm on ethics, on the company's purpose, even when it's commercially difficult or unpopular, that's the parallel. Ludamaguzi's story forces you to ask, okay, what are our absolute non-negotiables?
That's a really sharp way to put it. Not just having values, but knowing where you absolutely draw the line. Okay, what's lesson number 2?
Resilience. That war wasn't quick. It was a 5-year guerrilla campaign against an established government army. Tough, long, required, incredible perseverance.
But it worked.
It worked. It ended in success. And then, well, a whole new phase of nation building.
So for a board, that translates into?
Thinking long term. Having strategic vision that goes beyond the next quarter, even through recessions or massive industry shifts. The kind of adaptability you need in a guerrilla war, working with limited resources, using local knowledge, changing tactics fast boards need that today, navigating like market volatility or big business model changes.
Right. It's not just weathering the storm. It's persevering towards a transformation.
Pursue.
Okay, makes sense. Third lesson the article pulled out.
Honoring all contributors. It emphasizes that National Heroes Day isn't just for the soldiers, the armed fighters. It also recognizes the civilians.
The ones who provided support.
Exactly. Food, shelter, intelligence, or maybe just endured hardship for the cause. It's a really inclusive way of remembering, acknowledging everyone's part, big or small.
And for a company, that means?
Well, it's a reminder that success doesn't just come from the C-suite or the star players. Boards need to make sure contributions from everyone are seen and valued.
Frontline staff, suppliers.
Yeah, suppliers, partners in the community, inclusive governance, basically. It shows that everyone's contribution matters, which builds loyalty and, well, resilience across the whole organization.
That ties back into that shared purpose idea. Okay, the fourth lesson feels a bit more complex. It looks at the darker side of the history, too.
It does, yeah. The article is careful to note that while there was heroism, the history is also marked by Brutality. It mentions atrocities committed by both sides during the war.
Difficult stuff.
Very. But the lesson isn't about finger pointing. It's about acknowledging the full picture, the complex, sometimes uncomfortable reality of the past.
So how does that apply to a board? That feels like a tricky translation.
It points to the need for a really honest self-assessment. Boards have to be willing to look back at mistakes, at failures, maybe even at the unintended negative impacts of past decisions.
Right.
Yeah. It's not about dragging things up for the sake of it, but about fostering real accountability. Learning from what went wrong, even the really tough stuff, so you can actually improve. You can't build a genuinely strong future on a sanitized version of your past.
That's a challenging one, but yeah, vital. Okay, so 4 big lessons. Stick to values under pressure.
Yeah.
Be resilient, honor everyone, and learn from the whole story, warts and all. How does the article say boards can actually do this? Make it practical.
It lays out some concrete steps. First, embed those core values, things like integrity, courage, respect, put them right into your key governance documents.
Like the charter.
Your charter, your code of conduct, maybe even the scorecards you use for evaluating leadership. Make it explicit. Make sure decisions actually get measured against those values. Don't let them be just posters on the wall.
Got it. Make them real.
Make them real. Second, institutionalize how you recognize people. Think about how Uganda made Heroes Day official in 2001. Boards can do something similar, create formal ways, like annual awards maybe.
Oh, like a culture champion award or something?
Yeah, exactly. Or a resilience award. Something that specifically calls out and reinforces the behaviors and the values you want to encourage across the whole company.
That links back nicely to honoring all contributors.
It does. Third step, develop serious crisis resilience protocols. Remember, that 5-year conflict needed deep local knowledge, constant adaptation. Boards should push for really robust contingency planning.
Stress testing scenarios.
Stress testing, definitely. And making sure insights from all levels, especially people on the ground, close to the action, actually feed into the strategy when things get tough.
Okay. And tackling the hard lessons, the failures.
Mandate after-action reviews. Make them standard practice after big decisions or major projects, whether they succeeded or failed.
A formal process.
A formal process. Document what was learned, discuss it openly, no burying bad news, and then track the actions taken to fix things or do better next time. That's how you bake in continuous learning from your own history.
And the last piece.
Champion inclusive leadership. Just like Heroes Day recognizes different roles in the struggle, boards need to actively shine a light on diverse contributions from all parts of the organization. Make sure everyone feels seen and valued. It reinforces that broad base of support.
It really is quite striking how looking at this one specific historical event, June 9th in Uganda, gives you such a practical checklist for modern governance.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How digging into history, even a national conflict from decades ago, can genuinely equip organizations for what's coming. That idea of an anchored purpose.
Grounded in values and stories.
Exactly. That kind of purpose helps you survive disruption. Just like the NRA sustained its mission, companies with a clear why, a purpose everyone understands, they tend to weather crises better. They can pivot more effectively.
And those core stories, like Luda Maguzi's sacrifice or the sheer grit of the 5-year struggle.
Narrative plus values really does create cohesion. Those foundational stories, they hold people together, especially when everything's changing fast.
Yeah.
When you need to make difficult strategic shifts, you need that unity, that shared belief. History, remembered intentionally, provides that anchor.
And the governance itself has to be adaptable, too.
Absolutely. Adaptive governance. Like Uganda adding Heroes Day decades later, recognizing the need to formalize that memory, boards need to do the same. Constantly review and tweak their structures, their charters, their processes, make sure they still fit the company's context, its challenges, its culture as it evolves.
So, bottom line, Uganda's June 9th isn't just a history lesson. It's, surprisingly, a source of real strategic insight for governance.
It really drives home that things like purpose-driven narratives, moral courage, recognizing everyone, resilience, these aren't just feel-good concepts. They're strategic imperatives for good leadership, for effective stewardship.
And actually embedding these things, writing values into the charter, creating ceremonies for recognition, building solid crisis plans, reviewing failures. Honestly, that's how you build genuine future-proof leadership.
Yeah, it's about weaving that what truly matters right into the operational DNA of how the organization is governed.
Which kind of leaves a final thought for you listening. Think about your own organization, or maybe even your own projects or life. What are the founding myths? What are those moments of sacrifice or integrity or just sheer persistence? How do they shape where you're going and how resilient you are? And maybe more importantly, how deliberately are those core values recognized and, well, built into how things actually run day to day?